your podcast is about it's true crime and also kind of paranormal. And so I was listening to a really interesting interview that you did with Amanda Knox. Can you just remind people who she is?
Yeah. So the podcast On the Edge with Andrew Gold, it is paranormal. It's everything. So it's paranormal, true crime. It basically depends who I'm talking to, and I want to convince them to listen to it. So I've told people on true crime podcasts, I'm like, yeah, it's really, really true crime. And I've gone on people's paranormal ones, gone, yeah, paranormal, but it's not really actually. It's more like thought leaders and people on different sides of the political spectrum, because I try to stay in the middle of it all, and then really strange people that you'd never imagine. There's like the Coffin Confessor is one of my favorites. This is this guy who just his job. He's an Australian guy. His job is to go to people's funerals and reveal their secrets. So he just like turns up and he's like, this guy was gay, like to a bunch of bikers or something like that. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. Psychopaths have been on there, like real psychopaths. And I love talking to psychopaths because I can be like, there's no front anymore. I don't have to pretend to be good, and they're not going to pretend to be good. And I can say like, what happens if like somebody comes in now and starts like ripping my guts out, and they're like, Andrew, we've been through this. This doesn't bother me. This is nothing, so I love that. Amanda Knox was really, really interesting because she's a huge name. For anyone who doesn't know, she was the student about 10 years ago. She's from Seattle, I think, who was accused of murdering her roommate, who was English, Meredith Kercher, in Italy. They were studying abroad. And that was a huge story. And it was really interesting how the press was different in the States to the UK, because the tabloids were horrible to her, very misogynist, and painted her as, they called her Foxy Noxy, which Foxy Noxy was actually her soccer name, because she ran like a fox, but it was taken to be like she was this really promiscuous girl, not that should have mattered, and that she had taken part in sex games and things, and that was why she killed Meredith, when in actual fact it's like there's very little evidence. And I get shouted at for this, and I will do. I'm sure there'll be people going, she definitely did it, there's loads of evidence, but the evidence is so, it's nothing, and it wasn't enough. But she went to prison for 4 years, which is extraordinary. So it was great to be able to sort of, the interesting thing about Amanda Knox, there's this Netflix documentary, and she says to the screen, she's like, you're looking at my eyes when you should be looking at the evidence. And I remember watching it thinking, I am looking at your eyes, as if I can find something out behind your eyes, whether you did it or not. So to see her face to face, and I found myself still doing that, and it's ridiculous. I've been writing a book, and that's why I wanted to talk to her as well. I've been writing a book about the psychology of secrets and when we're keeping secrets and things. And there's very, very little evidence, despite what a lot of YouTube channels will tell you, that the way people look and behave and act gives away anything. So she's very much, she got put in prison for years just because she looked slightly different to how people expected her to look, and they painted a story about her. So yeah, that was a really, really great, a chance to speak to her. I was extremely excited.
Yeah, well, it's great. So I highly recommend it. What are you working on now?
Right now, yeah, so this book, The Psychology of Secrets, that's with Pan Macmillan at the moment. So that is basically, through my podcast, I started to notice that a lot of people, and I don't know if you noticed this actually. So, okay, there's this thing called parasocial interaction, yes. Which, the talk show host effect of like the one-way relationship. And then you start to have a relationship with your fans or listeners and viewers, and then they start to trust you. And I don't know, have people been getting in touch with you and revealing like quite intimate, secretive things?
I don't know if I would describe it that way, but I guess some people have shared stuff with me that, that was kind of heavy. Yeah,
stuff they might not even tell a friend, and they sort of trust you maybe. And it's just like, well, why is that? And I was really fascinated by that. What is going on there? And this, basically somebody got in touch and told me that they had killed someone. It was a woman who killed a guy, and the police were looking and everything. And she gave me the facts. She gave me the, I know I've checked it out. It's a real thing. And it was extraordinary. And the most extraordinary thing about what was already an extraordinary story was the fact that she told me. It was like, why me? She's just, somebody who listens to the podcast. And then other people started doing it. And the bigger my podcast got, which, by the way, it's not very big on YouTube yet, which is why I'm trying to sort of make it bigger. But on audio podcasts, it tens of thousands of people listening in, and they get in touch, and people are saying, hi, Andrew, I listened to your podcast. By the way, my grandfather touched me when I was this age. And I'm like, whoa, let's just say, how are you first? Or let's start with some pleasantries. So that really fascinated me, like what's going on there. And I started looking at my guests. So, for example, the coffin confessor I spoke about before, he's a perfect example of somebody who needs to reveal secrets, right? He goes from funeral to funeral. He gets paid £10,000 by the dying person. And he, turns up and he takes the microphone away from like whoever's talking, or he stands up and says, hang on a minute. And he tells like whatever truth they need told. He gets their secrets out after their death. So him and the psychopaths and Amanda Knox and all these different people, their relationships with secrets. So that really fascinated me. So that's what I do sort of with half my time. And then the rest of the other half is working on the podcast all the time, 2 episodes a week, just trying to find the strangest, most unusual people. I'd like to get you on at some point. Not that you're strange or unusual, but we spoke on Sean Atwood, and that was really really fun.
Yeah, that was the true crime podcast that you co-host. That is, you guys had me on to talk about Steven Donziger, big focus of the Katie Halper show.
That was fascinating. Yeah. And Sean's completely mad. Like he's like the most eccentric, crazy guy I've ever met. And I got, I don't know why he just approached me to come on to co-host his show. He's an extraordinary person.
Yeah.
So, and it was great having you on that.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, thank you, Andrew. Would definitely love to talk to you again, hear about what's happening next, and come back on. And of course, would love to do your show. And I really recommend the show and also the documentaries.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you to Katie and the team and everyone. Have a lovely evening, all of you.
Thanks, Andrew.